Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Sam Roberts Wrestling Podcast. Introducing your host from New York, here is Sam Roberts.
Welcome to the Wrestling Podcast, my friends. Welcome. Hope everybody's having a good day. Whatever day it is that you happen to be listening to this. Welcome to Sam Roberts Wrestling Podcast. I'm Sam Roberts, and this is my wrestling podcast. I'm a wrestling fan, and we appreciate wrestling here. I appreciate you, the listeners. I'm sorry if you're listening to this as soon as it comes out. I'm sorry there was a little delay today. There's a technical issue with one of the files. However, I'm going to make this especially good. I'm going to make this a great podcast today to make up for any tardiness that you may have had to deal with. We've got a lot. Of course, we'll have the state of wrestling. I'm going to have a former member of WWE Creative, Andrew Goldstein, come in and help me analyze the Royal Rumble match and what was good about it and maybe what was not good. I don't know. Depends on what he thinks. And wait till you hear this. We're going to start the show the only way I know how to, with a big, big guest. I got to talk to Charlotte after the Royal Rumble. I talked to her this week because I thought that was a huge part of the Royal Rumble outside of the match was not only the way the Becky Lynch-Charlotte match was treated as a big match with a story and everything, but the fact that Sasha came in at the end, oh my God. I'll talk a lot more about it in the state of wrestling and how I felt. But I haven't spoken to Charlotte, I don't think, since she came to the main roster, maybe right after she came to the main roster, but I wanted to talk to her about the Royal Rumble, WrestleMania possibilities. Remember a month or two ago, the storyline with her brother who passed away, everything. So we got into it. Charlotte is an amazing guest. And I'd like to share that with you right now. It's Charlotte here on Sam Roberts Wrestling Podcast.
And now, the Sam Roberts Wrestling Podcast interview.
Sam Roberts, you're on the line with WWE Divas Champion Charlotte.
Charlotte, how are you?
I'm good, Sam. How are you, sir?
I'm good. I was. We were all very excitedly watching Royal Rumble last night. How did you feel? Have you watched it back at all? Do you watch things like that back?
Oh, I usually don't so quickly, but when I was waiting for Joe to call me, I caught a couple of moments from the match because they usually replay the show the night. Like, if there's a pay-per-view, they'll show it and catering. So I saw parts of it. But, we're just so hard on ourselves, it's hard to watch back.
I wonder, like, if you watch back specifically the Sasha moment, because obviously that's one of those things that, like, anybody excited about all three of you coming up to the main roster knows. Yeah. Everybody's kind of been waiting for it. Like, you guys have been kept completely apart for months. And for it to finally, like, pay off last night was pretty amazing.
Yeah, we even had the BFF moment. I don't know how many people caught that.
I caught it. I was like, we're going way back. And then I was like, no, not that far back.
Well, like, a year and a half maybe?
Like
2 years? Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
Where does the time go?
How does it feel? I mean, you guys, you talked about, when I talked to you like a year ago, I guess, because it was last year WrestleMania, and you were talking about main eventing pay-per-views, and you weren't on the main roster at all. How does it feel now? I guess everything moves so quickly, but you've done so much in so little time on the main roster. Have you had any chance to, like, reflect at all over the last 6 months?
To be honest, I really haven't digested it yet, just because, like you said, it's just go, 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 go. But now thinking, I do remember, specifically sitting with you guys and Katie.
Yeah.
At Mania and just, talking about NXT, and we were starting those road trips and what it was like, and Sasha and I semi-main eventing San Jose.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, it seems like 5 years ago.
Right?
Like, really, just all this has happened in a year. I mean, to even think where NXT went to, Bayley and Sasha, and then us all debuting. It's hard for me to even say, like, yeah, I'm WWE Divas Champion, because I just remember sitting in the back watching, Paige and AJ and the Bellas last year.
Yeah, do you consider yourself, like, in your, psychologically or in your heart or however you want to phrase it, like, obviously a year ago, it was clear you're an NXT performer. Like, that's who you are. That's how you identify yourself. Do you consider yourself, like, does it feel like you're a main roster performer?
It doesn't. I say I feel more that way now than when I debuted, but I still feel like NXT just because I was NXT homegrown.
Right.
But it's weird. It's like I walk in the locker room and, you'll see, Natty, Bree, and Nikki, and, I obviously was in NXT with Paige, but I'm like, wait, I'm up here with them.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? Like, we're all together. It's different because for so long you sit at home watching them, and you go to school each and every day, and then when you have a school session and you watch back Raw and you see them, and it's all of a sudden you're there. I still don't think I grasp that I'm here. I grasp that I'm in that position.
And without, like, I mean, nothing's been announced, of course, but theoretically, right, based on the way Royal Rumble went for you, this idea that the Charlotte-Sasha WrestleMania match could happen is not, based on timing, terribly far-fetched.
No.
It's amazing.
I know. I get goosebumps just thinking about it, because just thinking about, being a part of, first of all, WrestleMania as main roster talent.
Yeah.
This will be my first time, even being considered to be able to be on the card. And then to think that, that is a possibility. And, we started together. We were just generic baby faces, and then the BFFs, and then look where we are now. It's just the evolution of the two of us, and to think that, we main evented the first time in NXT, and, it could be a huge singles at Mania.
Yeah.
It just makes you want to work that much harder.
Yeah, I guess so. Speaking of where you're at now, like, we've talked before about how you feel about, the Flair name, and when you first came in, you wanted to make sure it wasn't really about your dad at all, or your family or anything. It was about you as a performer. And as you've gone through on the main roster, things have changed a lot. Like, you're a bad guy now. Your dad's coming to the ring with you every night. Like, I, for instance, as a fan, especially because you had established so much on your own, the first time, and I think I tweeted about it, the first time I saw you take the Flair bump where you did the 2 steps and fell flat on your face, I, like, freaked out. I stood up. I was yelling. How do you feel about now kind of going more into taking over the Flair legacy and picking up on things that your dad did?
To be honest, personally, I did have a hard time when I debuted, because, they were, all three of us, kind of were baby faces. And when I really, started to, become my own in NXT was, after my Natty match, and I was a heel. That's when I felt most comfortable. So I do feel, if I'm going to carry on my dad's name,
right,
the Flair legacy, it's easier to adapt, the cheating and his mannerisms, I guess.
Yeah, totally.
His style is just, it comes more naturally as a heel than, trying to push the Flair name as a baby face. But it's obviously a mixed blessing, but it is an interesting, duo. Me and my dad walking to the ring together all the time. It's got to be nauseating. So it's got to work in that aspect.
I saw you had this great moment, because it's like so much of it is like there's not, especially with your dad, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of where the character ends and the guy begins. Like, you had this moment where you're trying to, as a character, rein him in a little bit, but then it feels like you're also doing that as a person. Like when you were I think you were leaving the ring at the last Madison Square Garden house show, and I saw you, because he's over there in the corner by himself, just strutting and dancing and doing his thing for the crowd, and you're going, Dad, we're going. It's over.
Yeah, that's real. That's real. No, I mean, it's like, my dad is Ric Flair. Like, off camera, on camera. For me, I think it also, too, like, takes my nerves away, because, like, even last night, walking to the ring, I'm like, I was in a singles on the Royal Rumble, facing my best friend. nervous, and then we come out and my dad's trying to dance on my entrance, and I'm like thinking, what are you doing? This is my entrance, brother. Like, keep it together here.
It is funny watching him. Like he'll do he'll just woo at ringside for no reason, and then the crowd will woo back, and he'll have this look on his face like, yep, the kids still got it. They're here to see me. And you're calling, Dad. You're here
I know. I'll be in the middle of the match, and I'll be like, why are they wooing? Like, why are they wooing? But look. But for instance, me and Becky's story that has been going on, and having my dad there helping me, win against, this girl that has it, but, there's these two people that keep getting her way, and I feel entitled. It does make for a good story.
Yeah.
But, there is definitely, it's a mixed blessing walking out with my dad.
And do you...
The pressure and, just all of it.
Yeah. And do you have that moment where you're like, at some point, do you go to somebody and say, look, I can only be the good guy that we're excited to see because I'm coming from NXT for so long. Like, we need to do something else, or does somebody come to you and say, look, here's what we want to do, and have to sell you on the idea of bringing your dad in?
Well, I personally, like, because the only reason I went babyface in NXT was because we started the Sasha feud.
Right.
If people really remember. And then I dropped the title, and then I was just kind of, the fans in it, this is how I look at it. I don't know how anyone else looks at it. But the fans in NXT grew to respect me. They didn't love me. People love Bayley. People love
Right.
Becky. Charlotte's character was respected. She had proved, that she was a genetically superior, dominant athlete. So they respected me. It wasn't necessarily that they could relate.
Right.
So then when I debuted, I'm like, how the hell am I supposed to say I'm genetically superior and relate?
Right.
Yes, I'm blonde. Yes, I smile. But to me, I saw it a different way, and I think they saw it as the father-daughter relationship was endearing to the fans. They can relate to that. They can relate to someone being emotional about their family.
Right.
And I get that. I do. But at the same time, she has it all. Like, there's no you know what I mean?
I do. I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, so I'm sitting here, like, trying the best I could as a babyface to relate to everybody. Just relate to me like I'm, I am a gifted athlete, but, I'm this character that also, wants to protect, my partner, Becky, from Paige, and then that all got... I was hard, and I was just like, I don't see how the fans are relating to me.
Right.
And I said, I'm stronger as a heel. And you know what? If you're going to pair me with my dad, which they did,
mm-hmm.
I said, I'm going to be over the top, because they're going to me, seeing this girl with her dad, and they have everything, and they walk around having my dad's a babyface, he's a legend.
Yeah.
That doesn't make me a babyface.
Right.
I don't care, they're father and daughter, and they can relate to it, but no, I'm going to be as over the top as possible, and I want people to hate me.
So when a couple months ago, when it was pretty controversial, when they brought up your brother passing as part of the storyline with Paige, was that kind of a last-ditch effort to bring this familial relatability struggle thing?
Yeah. I think they needed heat, because, in my eyes, I look at Paige, looking at her as a fan, not as talent. I'm like, yeah, she's freaking cool. She's
mm-hmm.
a badass.
Right.
I can relate to her. She's one of us. And I knew that I think, the Reed storyline came with, because they needed heat, and they needed to get me some kind of sympathy.
Were you
just if you turn on the TV, right?
Yeah.
I'm bigger than everybody.
Right.
Just no audio.
Right.
My smile, maybe some people find that endearing. I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
Totally. Yeah. And you're all muscle, and you're obviously in better shape than half the dudes on the roster. So it's like, there's no doubt. Yeah. But you are coming from an advantage. So that was, and were you surprised at the amount of backlash that storyline had? Like, the people were almost like...
Honestly, I was, because I already get it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, before the storyline, people think that, being a Generation Kid, everything's handed to you, but honestly, it's that much harder because could I have walked on set and been whoever I wanted to be?
Right. No, absolutely not.
No, and then, people knowing about Reed's death, knowing, that the story behind him, knowing, my dad's his private life has been in the media for years. So I'd already gotten backlash from social media anyway, saying negative things about my brother or my father. And it's like, I think just the general public wants to be able to say their 2 cents anyways.
Right.
But they, it's like, that's the person that's popular. We're not going to like this because we want to be in charge.
Right.
Or how dare they use that? And, like, for me, people ever really like, how did Charlotte or how did Ashley feel as a person? And it's like, well, I deal with his death every single day.
Right.
So to me, it was like, whoa, wait, like, all these people talk about him anyways. And because he got brought up, like, why are they making it such, I don't know.
Yeah, and
I was surprised.
Yeah, and it's weird to hear wrestling fans, like, it always kind of bugs me when wrestling fans decide, well, that crosses the line, and you're like, it's wrestling. Like, what do you mean it crosses the line? Like, it's up to the performers and everyone else.
Any great storyline came from a little bit of realism.
Right.
Just whether it's, I'm not saying it was good, it was bad. I don't know anymore just because, like, once it was hashed and then getting the backlash, it was hard. I'm like, why is it, like, am I a bad person?
Mm-hmm.
Or, how is this making me look? And then they're making it look like it was just not, but you know what? People were talking. People
talked a lot. It definitely got a lot of attention.
And there you go.
Yeah.
And unless you're in my shoes or the companies or whoever, it is what it is.
Right. If you, going forward, so if you have the option now, and this is probably a tough, loaded question that you can't answer, but if they come to you and they say, okay, Charlotte, we're trying to put together WrestleMania, do you want to do a singles match with Becky or do you want to do a singles match with Sasha? Do you have a preference?
Honestly, okay, so obviously the Four Horsewomen, I had no background, right?
Right.
So I learned from those 3 women. So I have a different connection to each one because it's like, okay, when I'm in the ring with Becky, she taught me this, so I learned this style. When I was with Sasha, I learned this. When I was with Bayley, I learned this. So I kind of adapt to my opponent.
Right.
So I can't say, who or what story or, I can't pick because it's just each is so different.
Right. And either way, it's like you're crying after that match. So
yeah, either way. Like, so I can't, I really don't want to say, who. I can't.
Right. Well,
maybe it's a triple threat. I don't know.
Yeah. Either way,
I will say, I main evented with Sasha before we started this, so
that's kind of the poetic story to go to. Yeah.
That's the story to go to.
Yeah.
Like, that's what we did. That's what we do. That's what her and I are known for. So that the evolution of it, and to have that, I see the most history in it making sense to be me and her.
Did you think you'd be at the top of the food chain this quick after your debut? You did not.
No, just because of it's a different ball game up here.
Yeah.
Completely different.
Yeah, we talk about that all the time.
You say I'm at the top of the food chain, but I still feel so new that I want to be like, hey, I'm at the top of the food chain, Like, I still feel like I have so much to freaking prove.
Yeah. Well.
Or do.
Well, yeah, and that's a good thing, that means you're not, there's that much more to do than good. Like, do it all, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Well, Charlotte, thank you for chatting for a little bit.
Oh no, for sure, Sam. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm sure I'll see you out there at WrestleMania again.
Yeah, for sure. Looking forward to it.
Awesome. Thanks, Charlotte.
Yeah,
Have a great day.
Charlotte will be at WrestleMania. Hopefully you can buy some tickets, Sam.
Here is Sam Roberts.
So that was Charlotte. I really like talking to Charlotte. I feel like you get a lot out of her, and it's really her. You know, I feel like, sometimes you talk to these guys and you don't really get the whole package. But with Charlotte, I feel like I'm talking to the person, and she's very honest and forthcoming and very, very interesting. And that's what I felt. That is how I felt about the angle involving her brother. A lot of people were offended, disgusted, thought it was inappropriate. But, I mean, wrestling, nothing's off limits. And if the performer is willing to bring their family into it, especially when it's such a public family, more power to you. You know what I mean? I do hope, by the way, that it is a Sasha Banks-Charlotte match at WrestleMania and not a triple threat, not anything else. Why don't we get into that? Let me start the state of wrestling. There will be, by the way, go to notsam.com soon. New T-shirts are coming, a whole bunch of new stuff that I'm very, very excited to share with you. I think you guys are going to love it. So stay tuned for that. We're doing it all in-house, premium quality, screen printed, the whole deal. It's going to be amazing. But let's get into the state of wrestling this week.
It's now time for this week's State of Wrestling.
Okay, state of wrestling time, and I'm going to bring Andrew Goldstein in a few minutes to give some insight on how he felt about the Royal Rumble match as a whole. But let's talk about where wrestling's at right now. I mean, to me, I feel like a very, very good place. Why not start with Charlotte, since Charlotte was our guest on the podcast this week? I really hope, and I know I said before, by the way, how great was it watching the Royal Rumble and seeing everything I said happen? Huh? I was wrong about AJ. And I mean, I said I wouldn't bring in AJ Styles at the Royal Rumble. I probably still maybe wouldn't, but I don't think it was a mistake. Like, I don't want to say it was a mistake. It's just not something I probably would have done. But guess what? I don't have a wrestling company. I have a podcast. So, as long as the people in charge of WWE aren't telling me how to run my podcast, I probably won't tell them they did the wrong thing. But I just feel like I probably wouldn't have. However, it can't be understated what a major impact he had on that match. I'm not going to tell you that I wasn't jumping up and down when his music hit. It was unfortunate that you didn't get the Phenomenal One reveal on the big screen. But I got to tell you, I was very, very excited to see AJ Styles, and it's amazing how they're marketing this guy. But I'll talk about that more when Andrew Goldstein comes in. I'd like to talk about the women. I wondered previously when the Sasha Banks-Charlotte confrontation would finally happen. It's obvious to me that they've been keeping Sasha and Charlotte away from each other ever since the NXT Divas came up to the main roster. And I think that's smart. But it is so great to see that they have not ignored the fan response that Sasha Banks has gotten. They took Sasha Banks. Obviously, she's not in Team Bad anymore because she's got a brand new Titantron. She's wearing pink and yellow, not black and silver. She comes out as her own separate entity because Sasha Banks is a major, major star. I said a year ago that Sasha Banks was my favorite wrestler, and sometimes things don't change. Sasha Banks is just a huge asset to this or any wrestling company, but specifically WWE, because with that WWE package or machine behind her, I feel like she's going to be unstoppable. That said, I can't overstate how fond I am of both Charlotte and Becky as well. I was really happy with the build to the Charlotte-Becky match at the Royal Rumble. I was really happy with the amount of importance that it got. I will say this. I hope at WrestleMania that it is a singles match. It is tough to imagine because they really don't do a lot of singles matches in general, specifically Divas matches anymore at WrestleMania. But I really hope, because that's the money match, to tell you the truth. Charlotte didn't want to say it earlier on the podcast, but I think that that's the obvious money match. Sasha, Charlotte, Divas Championship on the line, WrestleMania 32. I think it's the way you have to go. It may not be the way they go, but I think it's the way they have to go. I think that'll be one of the stronger matches, to tell you the truth, on the whole show. I wonder what's going to happen with New Day as we head into WrestleMania, because another thing that I can't overstate, I can't tell you how strongly I felt New Day performed mano a mano with The Rock. Now, I don't think it's going to be the New Day and The Rock at WrestleMania. I think that was just a cute segment that they felt they had for Raw this week. It's not dissimilar to the segment they did between New Day and Chris Jericho. But New Day was so good. And the fact that New Day can go out there, not show an ounce of intimidation, and still be just as New Day always is, around somebody who's got a presence like The Rock. You know, that New Day can come out and still command the amount of attention that they do. And quite honestly, they were funnier than The Rock. They were funnier than The Rock. I laughed out loud when Big E was demanding, you can't say penis on TV. He can't say penis on TV. He can't say penis on TV. Don't say that. So funny. So funny. I was just, as much as it's tough to be impressed by New Day anymore because they're consistently so good, I was super, super impressed with what was going on with New Day. I'm excited about Fastlane. I was surprised, to tell you the truth. When I watched Raw, I said to myself, it's clearly going to be Dean Ambrose and Roman Reigns one-on-one. They're going to have the two brothers, as they say, fight it out at Fastlane, and it's like now Roman has to fight his friend. But the fact that they added Brock Lesnar into the match surprised me, and pleasantly surprised me. I think that's going to be good. You know, having Brock Lesnar on a pay-per-view is never a bad thing, but it adds an element of I don't know what's going to happen to it. Whereas if it were Dean Ambrose and Roman Reigns, clearly you'd be in a situation where Roman Reigns wins. Now, I still think it's obvious that Roman Reigns does win, but, you know, how is the question. The answer is Bray Wyatt interferes, and you set up Roman, Hunter, Bray, Brock in the same match. But, you know, it'll still be a fun ride to watch, I think. Here's what I want to talk about. TNA puts out this tweet this week, right before, or I guess the end of last week. And they say that AJ Styles, Carl Anderson, and Luke Gallows had all entered into a contract with TNA. TNA said that they had an agreement with all three of those guys. And then they said that after Christmas, they decided not to honor them, and that AJ's lawyer, who I guess represents all three of them, called up TNA and said, we don't want any part of this deal anymore. And I have to ask, why on earth would TNA go public with that? Is that something where they're trying to make Gallows, Anderson, and Styles come off as bad guys? Because guess what? It's not going to happen. They're part of the WWE machine now. You know how excited people are going to be to see Gallows and Anderson? You know how excited people were to see Styles on Raw and in the Royal Rumble? It's like this fantasy world. It's completely surreal watching Styles in a WWE ring. AJ Styles in a WWE ring is not all that dissimilar to Ric Flair in a WWE ring in 1992 and 1991. Like, we never thought this would happen. This is the other guy's guy. This is the one guy who's the other guy's guy, and he can still go. You know, it's not like Sting coming in and doing one or two matches. It's like, no, he's having a run here now. AJ, I guess, has signed multiple years. But I don't know why TNA would decide to make it public that they had an agreement with these three guys, and these three guys decided not only to not go with TNA, but to go back on their agreement. That makes me feel like, okay, clearly WWE is the biggest show in town. And while that's true, and there's no getting around it, I don't know why TNA would go out of their way to highlight that. I don't think that putting out that message does anything good for TNA. Very, very strange. All it does is get me excited to watch all three of those guys debut in WWE. Like, oh, it's really happening. Why else would they turn down TNA? I don't believe it. It's really happening. They got me pumped for the competition's product, which is bizarro world to me. I don't understand that at all. I had heard rumors, but I was surprised that Austin Aries popped up in NXT. I would assume that Austin Aries is going to fill the same type of position that Samoa Joe does over there, meaning I don't foresee Austin Aries or Samoa Joe coming to the main roster. And I also wonder about what their policy is going to be about guys using their wrestling names. Like, yes, there is something to cash in on an Austin Aries and a Samoa Joe and an AJ Styles, but I wonder how far they're going to go with that. I think with AJ, there was no getting around it. I mean, I guess they could have gotten around it, but they decided not to. With Samoa Joe and Austin Aries, I feel like they've kept their names because they're going to stay at NXT. But still, it's a very interesting way that things have changed. Things are changing. I mean, you saw in the Austin Aries Jericho, I mean, not the AJ Styles Jericho match, AJ Styles was being AJ Styles. And that hasn't been the case historically in WWE. It's the same thing I was saying last week or the week before, but now on SmackDown, Mauro Ranallo, who's doing a great job, is really the first play-by-play man in a long time to go out there and do his own thing. That hasn't been done in a very long time. You know, he is fitting the mold of WWE, but he's absolutely doing his own thing, which I think is so strong. And at this moment, a good thing for the company. I just wonder how far they'll go with it. I think it'll be interesting to see. I think it'll be very, very interesting to see. All right, let me talk about the Royal Rumble match. And for that, I want to go to a whole separate segment. I want to talk to Andrew Goldstein and get his analysis of what happened at the Royal Rumble. Let's bring in Andrew Goldstein. Andrew Goldstein is here for the first time.
Hey now.
What's up, man? How are you doing?
How you doing?
Now, Andrew, when did you work for WWE Creative?
I from early summer 06 till about right before this time of year. I got S-canned.
Is that right?
Right before the road to the Royal Rumble.
Oh.
So I missed all the good stuff. I missed Rumble 07 and Mania 07.
So you didn't get to actually be there for a Royal Rumble?
No, it was a big bummer.
Yeah, because that's what I always wonder about.
That's
like I read
stuff.
Jimmy Corderas, the referee, wrote a whole article about kind of the booking that goes into one of those matches. Because ever since I was a little kid and started, well, not a little kid, but ever since I was young enough to kind of piece together that a lot is going into the storytelling here, I always wondered, like, okay, but how did they do the Rumble?
Hey, man, I'm had a cup of coffee inside fucking Oz and everything, but I still watch a Battle Royal, let alone the Royal Rumble, and wonder, how do they know?
Right. Who goes over when?
And what if it messes? You know, Austin just told a great story on Jim Ross's podcast about messing up in his first Rumble, because I guess he got thrown over and the rope was slippery, and he was supposed to hold on and get back in, but he fell out. And then the guys in the ring had to, like, on the spot, figure out how to get to the destination that they were going to get to with Austin without Austin.
Wow.
So, like, in my head, I don't know how you do that.
Yeah, because you watch some of those spots, and there were a lot of them this year at the Rumble.
Yeah.
Where guys go over the top rope and almost hit the floor.
Yeah.
Like Ziggler was doing a ton of them. Triple H did a few of them.
Hunter did, and he wrestles once or twice a year,
yes.
So that dude's mad rusty.
Right. And so the fact, and especially since he's the one who's winning, like all it takes is one slip, a slippery rope, like Austin
said. I know,
said.
and then Ambrose is your winner, and you're like, wait a second.
We have to figure out how to deal with Ambrose as the world heavyweight champion.
It's even worse when, like, you know, or it must be worse when a guy like, like last year, all the legends they threw in there, like Diamond Dallas Page comes in, like. There's no way that, of course, that guy might mess up something.
Right.
He hasn't wrestled in like 8 years.
And he's got that adrenaline going, like, they're all looking at DDP again.
And he's wearing really tight jeans.
Oh,
you know, all kinds of things can go wrong.
Oh, yeah.
But even a regular Battle Royal throws me off. Like, I don't know how do they know when to, like, lay back?
Right.
Lay out?
Because it's like, even if they're going to call it in the ring, like, I'd be in the ring, like, I'm not getting eliminated. You know?
Just dead weight in the corner.
Just sit there like, no, I'm staying in until the end.
Yeah.
But
I missed all that fun stuff, sadly. I got to be at, like, Unforgiven's and...
Unforgiven's a good show.
Unforgiven and I don't even remember the other ones.
Did you have any... When you hear people criticizing WWE Creative, are you more sensitive to that because you understand the scope of it?
Yeah. I'm as critical as probably anybody in this sort of wrestling pundit game.
Mm-hmm.
But when I see fans on Twitter and talk on radio and whatever, people talking about the creative, I always remind them that the creative team is made up of dudes just like you and me, super fans for the most part, and the ideas that get tossed out, whether in private or at the table with Vince, are all these ideas that you guys are putting out on Twitter. They're there. They're on the table. It's just that the filter is, I always just say, you got to remember the filter is a 72-year-old man or however old Vince is.
I mean, it's
the final filter.
It's the same story before people are critical with commentary, right? Like there's somebody in the earbud of the it's not just a guy at the table making his own decisions.
And like one of the best things about being on creative are those car rides where you get to talk to the senior guys like the Ed Koskis who have been there for like he's got to have been there almost 20 years now, 15 maybe, and listen to like the almost was stories. This almost got through. What we almost did with like they have when that dude gets out. I mean, I don't think Gewurz will ever talk, but when a dude like Ed Koski leaves that company and starts doing these kind of shows, it's going. I mean, that dude's a storyteller. I mean, he's got one about bringing China back, and it was just these things like blow your mind as a fan. You're like, why did that happen? It would have been. And they have like 6 weeks planned out of like the most amazing story you've ever heard.
And then it's like, well, we're not doing that.
But for any number of reasons, Vince and Stephanie and whatever team was in place at the time, they don't do it. And it's not always their fault. I will give them, there are injuries, there are all kinds of marketing issues around why you can't do X, Y, and Z, especially like with China and her porno past and that kind of thing. But that said, I always try to remind people those ideas do get thrown out, and even better ideas than the ones that people sort of fantasy book online.
So you managed to maintain your fandom. Were you even after you got fired? Were you a fan immediately, or did you have to take a break?
Yeah, it's funny. I definitely take a break. It's like whenever you get fired from a job or let go, it's really hard to sort of, especially in media, it's hard because it's hard to digest that content right away.
Right.
You take a little bit of time off. But I remember the first thing I was in a restaurant, oddly enough, it was like a sushi restaurant, and sushi restaurant, and then SmackDown was no volume on the TV, and I saw the Mexicools debut on the tractor trailers, and I just saw the chyron that said Mexicools, and I was just like, oh man, holy crap! And then I was like, all right,
the Mexicools brought you back in.
The Mexicools brought me back in. I was just like, wow,
that's amazing.
They figured out something to do with these guys, and it's really racist.
Yeah, really racist.
Like they are on riding mowers.
Like you're like, oh, there must be some kind of little tip of the hat, or there's got to be something that makes this not racist. Oh, there isn't? Oh, it's just Mexican guys on riding.
It's on the nose racism. This is great.
Oh, okay.
No, but what's cool is like once I did get back in and could sort of stomach it, and then you realize there's this whole, I mean, I was at, right when I got fired in 07, like right around 08, 09 is when this whole IWC, Internet Wrestling Community thing, like all these opportunities came available to me because I had seen behind the curtain.
In terms of like, posting places, writing places, blah,
yeah,
blah,
like
blah.
at the time, David Lagana was really the only person doing wrestling podcasts. And
I remember David Lagana's podcast,
Creative, which was a name that I came up with. I'm not going to take credit, but he
literally just did.
That was my that was my
you
name.
just
But anyway,
took credit.
He was the first guy I can remember doing a wrestling podcast, and that's before he got hired at TNA,
right? And
he had left WWE, so. And then he would have me on, and then I was just like, whoa, this is super cool. And now it's like, I mean, this week I'm doing five
wrestling
podcasts and radio shows, and it's just like this fun little community that we're all part of,
right?
That I hold near and dear.
Well, and it ranges the spectrum. I like doing it because it's like I can just talk. Like I'm not overly critical of it because I just like wrestling.
Yeah,
and it's like, and you find it there's all different varieties of it. I'm sure for somebody like you who does a ton of podcasts, like you find people that are like, oh, it sucked, blah blah blah, and you find people that are just excited
Oh my God!
to talk about pro wrestling.
Like, I mean, Aubrey Sitterson is like he's the most positive wrestling fan I've ever met. And I love doing his show.
Yeah. Do you have anything specifically that you're most proud of that you are responsible for?
Yeah. I was heavily involved with guys like MVP and Kennedy. And at the time, if you remember, they had this sort of like unlikely pairing, friendship, because they were sort of both heels, but both kind of like, why would they ever be friends? But they kind of like put their differences aside and did stuff together. So I worked a lot with those two, and I got to write a really cool promo for Kennedy that he cut right on the road to wrestling Undertaker, which you can look it up on YouTube. And he did it word for word, and it was all about like, I'm not afraid of your parlor tricks, blah blah blah. I'm not like everybody else. And Vince gave it Vince, I think, through like word of mouth, said it was the best promo that he had ever cut. So that was cool.
That's awesome.
And also with Kennedy, just randomly in a meeting, at the time, I think the U.S. title was on Benoit. May he rest in peace. And it was like the Benoit Chavo. Yeah, it was Benoit and Chavo going back and forth, and they wanted to get the title out of the story, not off of Benoit, and put it on. Basically, Vince didn't want to put the U.S. title on Chavo, is what I'm trying to say.
Gotcha.
And so we were in a meeting, we were trying to figure out how to get the title out of the story so they could trade wins, and I just sort of sheepishly raised my hand. I was like, how about we put the title on Mr. Kennedy? And Vince was like, God damn. I think it's time for Ken. And lo and behold, like that, that next week on SmackDown, Kennedy won the U.S. title. It was his first major singles title, obviously it happened because of like the effort that dude put into his career, and he's like the best. He's still a friend of mine.
But it's cool for you to be a part of that.
But I was just like, dude, that just happened because I raised my hand and had finally had the balls to say something in a meeting.
Yeah, and then how come you got fired?
Any number of reasons, but honestly, midway through my tenure, Alex Greenfield left the company. He was a big advocate of mine. He was the head writer of SmackDown when I was there. He left, and Heyman sort of wanted to take me under his wing, and he wasn't in very good standing with the company. He eventually left. So that was two big sort of people in my corner, and Michael Hayes took over SmackDown. He was not the biggest fan of me. More so, I think he just wanted his own people when he took over. And it was just like a sort of confluence of events. But the real answer, and it really took me a bunch of years to finally like stop being bitter about it and really take ownership of like why it didn't work out. And I just honestly got the job way too early. I just had I had zero confidence in that shark-infested water. I was like 25, 26 years old.
How did you get the job?
I always say, like, if I got the job now, I would crush it.
Right.
I have no doubt that I would crush it and have the confidence to walk up to guys like Kennedy and MVP and whoever else and really be able to, like, be a productive producer. I didn't know how to produce. I wrote on a couple TV shows, just like writing jokes and stuff, and was thrown into like floor producing and segment producing these dudes. Like, it just, I wasn't ready for it.
Right.
I was not ready. I got it way too early.
Well, let's talk about what's going on now.
Yeah.
The Royal Rumble.
The story of getting the job, by the way, not an interesting story.
Well, once you said that you wrote on a couple TV shows, I figured that kind of answered it. Like you were right.
The
quick
story is I applied through a website, like through entertainmentcareers.net years ago, interviewed, didn't get it. Year later, saw it was open again, hit the HR lady, was like, hey, is there any rule against reapplying? She's like, nope, go ahead. Had another round of interviews, round of submissions. Everybody's heard what the submission is at this point. And I got it. And they said they hired me because I had MTV experience, and they had just put Miz in the role of running the Diva Search.
Right.
And so I was brought on to do the Diva Search.
Gotcha, because they wanted it to feel like MTV.
Yes, because Miz, MTV, the whole thing. And Divas. So those were like the first few things that I did. And then, I was also a part of the creative team. So then I got put on Team SmackDown, and the rest is history.
How did you feel going into this year's Royal Rumble? Were you optimistic? Were you feeling like, because, like, for instance, the last few weeks of Raw, maybe not the last few weeks, but in December, there were multiple Raws where it was like, ugh. You know what I mean? Nothing was really happening. Yes. And they have done shows before. WrestleMania last year, where I think a lot of fans went in going, I have very low expectations for this show. I think it's going to be a disappointment. And they leave, and they're like, I can't believe how great WrestleMania was. And you know what I mean? And it restores faith. And I think WWE, I've said it before, has the ability in a single night to just right all of their wrongs.
Yeah.
How did you feel? Point. How did you feel going into the Rumble?
I felt pretty good because even though I think a sort of astute fan could figure out that it was going to be some version of Triple H, Roman Reigns continuation of that storyline at the end of the match, but I still think there were really intriguing undercurrents and storylines in that match. I mean, all the rumors and speculation about AJ Styles, all the rumors and speculation about Daniel Bryan, all the rumors and speculation about, maybe it's Kevin Owens because they're going to go Kevin Owens and Brock. Right. Brock's in the, then they put Brock.
And it could go to Brock.
Then it could go to Brock. And then the last two.
I mean, there were people literally saying, John Cena heals very fast. John Cena could be in the Raw. And you're like, he literally had surgery a week ago.
I got a ton of, I took a bunch of questions on Twitter, and a ton of people hit me like, do you think Seth Rollins might? And I was like, dude, that dude tore up his MCL, ACL, and everything else. But no, and then the other intriguing thing was the last two Raws before the Royal Rumble was the Wyatts, like, boom, resurgence.
Right.
And then you're just like, maybe this is finally when they put the title on Bray.
Right. And all of a sudden you see, because Kevin Owens Brock was still a possibility going into the Rumble, but now Bray Brock is also a possibility, and either of those two matches could be title matches, or maybe they're not title matches.
Yeah.
So you go in with all these possibilities.
So I was super excited going in, and I thought I have like the worst recollection of like what each past Rumble was and what each past, I'm like not the guy that can like call out, Unforgiven 08 and tell you what the main event was. But like, I just feel I came out of watching Sunday, on my way home from watching it, just like this was the best Royal Rumble in a very long time. Do you feel that way?
Yes. I was saying, I think, and it's the sort of obvious, but 92 is my favorite, the Ric Flair one. But I was watching Royal Rumble 99 on Saturday before, and that's the one that Vince McMahon won.
Yeah.
And that Royal Rumble had such amazing storytelling in it. I mean, it was a little predictable, but it had such amazing storytelling because...
I got to go back and watch it.
You got to, because all you have to do is watch the match, and you just see where everybody is. Because the same time you have the 30-man Rumble match going on, you've got Austin over here, and he's being taken off in an ambulance, but then he's going to drive back, and you've got The Undertaker coming out, and he's going to sacrifice Mabel, and the Acolytes are coming and dragging him.
I already love it.
And Kane's being chased to the ring by medics who are trying to put him in a straitjacket, and there's all these different storylines and stories that are playing out through this match.
90 was on an Instagram account that's like 80s wrestling. It makes me happy if I scroll through Instagram and I see a picture of Duke the Dumpster Droese. I get excited.
Yeah.
So I follow this stupid account, and they posted like the last like 20 seconds of Rumble 90, which was awesome. It's Hogan and Ultimate Warrior.
Yeah,
which was so cool.
Yeah.
So and
I also feel like the reason this Rumble was so good was just because everything was just timed perfectly to make it so you don't have, because the last two Rumbles I think were timed very poorly, and it left the audience with the last half of the match just booing it.
I remember my criticism last year was everything felt very written.
Right.
In last year's Rumble, it felt like, okay, here comes this spot. Here comes this sort of, back and forth between these two guys. Here comes this Gaga spot. Here comes this legend.
Yeah.
This was so fluid and clean. And I thought, I was like, man, it's a good Rumble when there isn't a 1 or 2 legend spots
Yes.
just for shits and giggles
yeah.
to make people happy, and you don't even miss it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I didn't even realize that till I was on the train home. I was like, hey, you know what? They didn't throw a Hacksaw Jim Duggan in there.
Right. Because it was too jam-packed.
It was too jam-packed with, like, meaningful people. My other big pet peeve about Rumbles in general are when they throw in, like, a random tag team, and you're like, I know Butch from the Bushwhackers is not going to win.
Right.
Like, why do you even throw them in there? It used to drive me crazy.
And it was nice. I actually liked, like, because I think at some point they had said all 4 social outcasts were going to be in the Rumble. Then they just had one of the 4.
Yeah,
I was like, perfect, because that way I don't need all 4 of those spots.
The same with the League of Nations. I was
Right.
just like, if you have 4 social, I mean, it's a big burgeoning faction era right now because you have the league. And I was like, 4 League of Nations, 4 social outcasts, the 4 Wyatts. Like, what are you going to do? Like, you're going to be left with no spots. So I think they were smart in like, okay, we'll cherry pick a couple from these, couple from these, couple from these, and leave the spots. But there was no Diamond Dallas Page. There was no
Right.
which usually I look forward to, but I don't think
I
you
didn't miss
needed it.
I didn't miss it. The only thing I would have done differently this year in the Royal Rumble was I would have had like Bo Dallas. Like I would have had Curtis.
You mean Bo Rida?
Bo Rida, he was so good, by the way. I would have had Bo Dallas, like Curtis Axel is getting ready to get in the ring, and then Bo Dallas just slides in
And takes the spot.
That way, Curtis Axel can still say he's never been
Can
eliminated.
I give you my cynical former creative team member, snarky criticism?
Yeah.
The logic of the League of Nations beatdown on Roman Reigns was so illogical in terms of they come down, they pull him out of the ring, they beat him down beyond, like, he can't even walk. They put him through a table, etc.
Right.
And Vince is calling the shots. Why don't they roll him in the ring and then have somebody eliminate him? Why do they leave the door open? Like, why do they leave it's like one of those ninja movies where, like, you beat up 8 of the 9 guys and you leave.
Well, I guess I'm done.
I'm done. But, like, they did the job and then they just walk away.
I guess they figured, well, he's going to the hospital, so he's out.
Yeah, well,
he's
you
not
see
even
that
getting
stupid
back
stretcher
in.
come down, you're like, okay, I know where this is going.
Right.
So I thought that could have been a little.
I was annoyed that some people,
That
not
annoyed
at the
me.
match, I was annoyed at the fans who were implying, because I read this, the implication was that Roman Reigns was taken out because he couldn't last. Like, he needed to rest. His cardio wouldn't last the match. And it's
He
like,
needed the break.
do we need to really
Well, I
get
thought-
that mad at Roman Reigns?
Before the stretcher came down, I thought he was going to, like, if you ever go to Raw or a pay-per-view live, there are the rest spots, and when you're sitting, we're lucky enough to sometimes sit ringside.
Yeah.
You kind of watch those rest spots, and the dudes are just laying there on the floor, like, hanging out.
Hanging out, and they're like looking at the
So
ceiling.
I
like-
thought, and like as a fan, you get to like yell at them and stuff. It's
Yeah.
fun. But I thought Roman Reigns was just going to hang out there, and you kind of forget about him, and then he'll slide in at the end. But they did take him away and do the whole gimmick, and then he came back out. But just logically, if you're going to beat somebody to like make him to
yeah, no, you're right, but I think
disqualify him from the match,
I think it's an
they
all
didn't finish the job.
And you're right, that is a snarky, like,
yeah, it's
creative,
a nitpicky,
yeah.
smarky thing.
Because all's well that ends well, and that would have been much worse if he had won the match. But the fact that he didn't win the match means, like, well, whatever.
Yeah, it's
Like,
fine.
well, he still lost. It doesn't matter.
Ultimately, you just remember who won, and this is the Rumble that Triple H won, and everybody can be mad. I think everybody's so busy being mad at Triple H winning that they don't remember that this minor logic flaw in what happened to Roman Reigns.
Yeah, and I think we also have to figure out, like, you go, like, okay, well, how are we going to get over the fact that Daniel Bryan is not in this match? AJ Styles is coming out at number 3.
Yeah.
Like, that's huge. Okay, well, AJ Styles is not going to win, so how are we going to get over that? We're going to have Owens eliminate him. Okay, yeah, but then everybody's going to love Owens. How do we get rid of that? Well, we're going to have
Zayn.
Sammy eliminate him, and it's like,
Yeah.
it was that chain of events was brilliant.
And look, I ripped him a little earlier, but I'll give him all the credit in the world. I mean, Michael Hayes is apparently the Royal Rumble, Jedi. He's the guy that sort of puts all this together, and you could see the genius of a Michael Hayes in being able to mentally figure what that math out that you just laid out.
Yeah, because I didn't figure it out until I was watching it, and then I looked.
It's a puzzle,
it's
man.
Brilliant. It's brilliant.
And he learned it from Pat Patterson.
Do you think are people mad that Triple H won the Rumble, or is it boo the bad guy mad?
No, look, it drives me crazy. This like narrative that Triple H is this figure backstage who's like, I'm going to win the Rumble.
Because that's the easy way to turn. The Triple H is just sitting in front of all the guys going, so we figure for the Rumble, I guess I'll win.
Yeah. Like that.
I don't know, whatever everybody else wants to do.
I mean, get over yourselves, guys. Get over it.
Right.
Get over it. Dude, how many good things is Triple H doing for all of us?
He really is.
First of all, you can't cheer the fact that Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens and Dean Ambrose and all these dudes are your favorite guys.
AJ Styles is on the main roster.
His name is AJ Styles.
And doing the Styles Clash. Dude, and teasing the Styles Clash.
Not since WWE bought WCW has a guy from another company showed up on WWE TV using his actual wrestling name.
It's one thing to be they
didn't name him BJ Miles.
Right. It's one thing to say it's amazing what Triple H is doing because we can buy Samoa Joe and Austin Aries shirts from NXT.
Oh my God, I didn't even... Samoa Joe and Austin Aries.
And Austin Aries. Now on the main roster.
And they're called by their actual name.
AJ Styles.
He's named him Fiji Ron.
And AJ didn't come in and get crushed. It was AJ Styles is here.
Yeah, it's
everybody take notice.
Any angry wrestling fan listening to this, that it's just Triple H did it again. just like he did with the Spirit Squad, which I was there for when he put them in the box and shipped them to Ohio Valley.
Uh-huh.
It's not. It's just not. I mean, it's a chapter in a story that is playing out, and
because I mean, the idea is that Triple H has the title for the sole purpose of one last ditch effort to make Roman Reigns the guy.
Yeah,
theoretically, right?
And I thought his promo on Raw was fantastic. Triple H is not Vince's. I thought Vince and Stephanie's stuff was just why you guys are. What? I don't even understand what you're saying. But then Hunter came out and crystallized what the story is, which is, I'm doing this because you don't have respect for this man, this family, this company.
This is my religion.
And me, it is my religion.
Yeah.
So, and that'll be on a T-shirt, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Soon. But I thought it was pretty good. Look, I can criticize certain things that Triple H does, but in this case, it's not first of all, he was forced. He's really forced. His hand has been forced because of the injuries. I don't think this was plan A ever. I don't think so either. D, E, F.
Yeah. And I don't think Vince McMahon being on TV was ever part of the plan.
No, not at all.
And it's not like anybody's being Vince, he's putting himself back on TV. No. You know what I mean?
From all I hear, he doesn't want to be on TV.
I don't think the owner of the company, if he wanted to be on TV, would take himself off for a year and a half or whatever it was.
I don't mind Hunter having the title at all. I mean, him walking out with the suit buttoned and he opens the jacket and he's wearing the title and that shit-eating grin.
Yeah.
It was fantastic.
Right. And he did. And the thing is that, he's as a character, acknowledging what you're mad at. He's saying, I'm the boss. And I took the title because it's mine now.
I mean, this is a good example of trolling the fans.
Yes.
Of trolling the fans that actually believe that. You're being worked.
Right.
You're being absolutely worked if you think that Triple H is like you said, I guess this year I'm bored.
Right,
Let's put the title on me.
It's been a while since I got the glory.
This guy's done more for wrestlers that have zero shot 5 years ago of being on the roster than anybody in the world.
Yeah.
So, very intriguing stuff.
Yeah, I think it's good, and it makes me very optimistic. I'd say the last two Raws heading into the Royal Rumble and then the Royal Rumble, it makes me very optimistic for WrestleMania, which is a lot, being that we're potentially dealing with a WrestleMania without a Cena, Rollins, Cesaro, Orton, whoever, I don't know, Bryan,
Nikki Bella. That's a big deal on the Diva side.
It is. But the fact that they're building a potential Charlotte-Sasha match, I worry that it's going to end up being a triple threat.
Well, that's been my critique of WrestleMania booking for the last decade, which is they want to get everybody a paycheck.
Right.
They want to get everybody a moment. So, last year, I think there was one singles match on the whole damn card. And it's just guys, come on.
Right.
You don't need a six tag team, gauntlet match.
Yeah.
The Ascension doesn't need the WrestleMania moment right now.
Right. That's why make the Andre Battle Royal a 40-man Battle Royal. Everybody gets their moment.
2 rings.
Yeah. That's what you
Battle
need to
Bowl.
do.
For you WCW fans.
Do you predict?
I've started to a little bit. I used to be like completely I don't fantasy book because I was bad at it when I was with the company. I'm still bad at it. But one thing I predicted correctly was right after the Rumble, I was just like, I mean, I got the logistics of it wrong, but I got the essence of it right, which was I was like, if I'm booking, I put AJ Styles on the highlight reel on Monday and set up Jericho Styles at Mania. Mm-hmm. Here we got it on Monday night, which was awesome.
I would imagine though that's happening at Mania.
I would hope so,
based on the ending,
the handshake.
Yeah.
The old wrestler pull-in handshake. I would hope so. And if they make that match a triple threat, fine. But
the Jericho, so who would they add into that?
I don't know. A lot of people are like, well, Kevin Owens eliminated him. But I was like, yeah, but Kevin Owens also had like a big-time moment with Sami Zayn.
That would be the thing.
I would hope. The problem with booking WrestleMania, too, is there's only so much room for grudge matches.
Right.
So if you're going to do Jericho and AJ Styles, and you're going to do Bray and Brock, which is a grudge match, and you're going to have a Taker match, is there room for Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn if there isn't a title? Because you still have to have an Intercontinental match. You still have to have a U.S. title match.
Do you think there's going to be an Undertaker match?
Everybody seems to think so. I don't think you need it, but like...
Who do you think you'd put in there with him?
Well, it's tough. I think I'm like contradicting myself, but I've always wanted to see Jericho Taker.
Really?
I think if Jericho's the one guy with the gravitas enough to give him a good match, I think the storyline sort of writes itself. Like, hey, I've achieved everything there is in this business. I don't have much time left, but before I go, I want to wrestle the Undertaker. I want to wrestle you at WrestleMania.
It's just, there is a story there. I just feel like at the end of the day,
it's a few years late,
and it doesn't mean anything because both guys.
Yeah,
it's not like either one of those guys are going forward after it.
Well, to that point, I mean, look, he already lost, so that pressure's off. To give a young guy a shot, who means enough?
I mean, I would put Kevin Owens in the Undertaker match this year. Initially, I said it's very obvious to me. It's John Cena, Undertaker at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
That was like clear as day to me, and then Cena got hurt. I would imagine that this won't be the Undertaker's last WrestleMania. Next year will be.
I don't mind Owens Taker at all, because if anybody's got the balls to like talk shit to the Undertaker,
exactly. And Kevin Owens can lose to the Undertaker and still look okay.
He's been losing to everybody and looking great.
I don't know how he does it.
I call him CM Chunk. I think he has the most of all the boxes checked.
Yeah.
Since CM Punk.
Yeah, he really is. He's incredible. But that's who I would put in, and then I would say the Undertaker's last match is. I think it would have been this year, but Cena got hurt.
Yeah,
and so I think it'll be next year against Cena.
I like that. Look, it's on WWE. The onus is on WWE to make Sami Zayn mean enough to the mainstream fan, because he already because they don't know who Sami Zayn is.
Right.
They've seen him once against John Cena and get injured and never be seen again.
Yes.
To the main people, I mean, I think the NXT rabid fans sometimes lose sight of the fact that like there's a couple thousand people in Orlando and a couple thousand people on the internet that know about what's going on here. Yeah. But the
Royal Rumble was in Orlando.
The kids who are going to Raw every week and watching Raw and dragging their parents don't know who Sami Zayn is.
Right.
So I think the onus is on WWE to make Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens mean something with history packages and the whole thing to get that match to be able to happen at WrestleMania.
I'll tell you the one thing that struck me about the Rumble was watching it. I would say the only thing I felt in the beginning of the match, after AJ came out, when it was Jericho and Kane and Goldust and a bunch of guys, at one point in the match, I said, I need a break from guys that wrestled in the 90s.
Yeah.
Like, I need to not see that. And if you paid attention to the crowd reaction, the crowd was not excited, not only for those guys, but like anyone who was really established, aside from like the newer crop, the Dean Ambroses, the Kevin Owens, they got excited for them. But I mean like Ryback, like guys like that have been around for a little while now. The crowd, it wasn't like it was dead, but they just weren't very excited. It felt to me like the Royal Rumble was a very clear indication that the audience wants something different going forward.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? And wants a different set of dudes.
That had to have been one of the selling points to Vince to be like, we got to bring this AJ guy in now.
Yeah.
Because Our
Yeah.
roster is thin. People want this kind of thing because we're so starved for surprises, like real surprises,
Yes.
not Randy Orton comes back from an injury type of surprise.
Yes.
A real surprise of a guy like AJ Styles, who was the face of TNA,
Yeah.
showing up and actually doing something meaningful.
And it's not going to cut it bringing in somebody else that's been here off and on for the last 15 years.
Yeah.
You know?
I call those dudes like the Ryback class of developmental,
Mm-hmm.
the pre-performance center developmental.
I feel
guys.
so bad for all those guys.
That whole fraternity of guys like Barrett, none of them are doing well.
No, well, it's everybody. It's Miz, Dolph, Barrett, Ryback, like that whole set, because those are the guys that came up as John Cena was sitting pretty.
They're not fun and sexy anymore because
Right.
you have this new crop of indie guys,
Right.
From developmental, and they don't have the nostalgic flair of being from the 90s.
Right.
They're stuck in this nebulous middle world where it's Ryback and Ziggler. We've seen every incarnation of these guys winning and losing and heel and
Right.
babyface and champion and
Right.
not champion, and I've gone for hours talking about this, but one of the things, like if I were really given the like, hey, you're the new COO of the company,
Mm-hmm.
I would figure out a way to set up a traveling team for those type of guys and have like an ensemble of 10 guys that are just not doing anything and
Mm-hmm.
are just tired and getting zero reaction, and send them all over to like all kinds of other companies. Like sign a deal with like six.
Put them on indie shows.
Put them on indie shows. Take them to Europe.
Like all of a sudden, Dolph Ziggler pops up on Ring of Honor.
Yeah. But they're under the WWE
Right,
umbrella.
WWE's Dolph
Now, the
Ziggler.
problem that people have said is like, well, it's an insurance thing. You have to, I mean, the insurance risk of sending a guy to like having a traveling team, it's a big nightmare. But I think with WWE's resources, you could figure it out.
It's
and I think
interesting.
it would solve a lot of problems if you took guys like Ryback, and all of a sudden Ryback's gone for 8 months.
Yeah.
But he's gone because he's working on like new gimmick and like figuring out who he is as a
Right.
wrestler. And then he comes back all confident because he just crushed it in Australia for 6 months.
Yeah.
Like, how cool would that be?
That's really interesting. Yeah, and it's something the guys need. I think Miz will always be okay because he's good at being obnoxious.
Yeah.
And he can always fill that role. But other than that, and the only other guy who I think made the smartest move possible is Zack Ryder, who's like, let me just go down to NXT and team with Mojo for a while.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because that at least is
Well, I
something
think
that...
more guys should do that.
Yeah.
More guys should utilize the performance center and be like, you know what? Maybe I'll go down there, have some fun,
Right.
figure something out.
Like, what if Dolph went down to NXT for a year?
Yeah, and had matches with Samoa Joe. Like, now that NXT is populated with some dudes that like aren't students,
Mm-hmm.
that like you could actually have some like meaningful, dope matches with while teaching the younger guys like how to work and how to sell and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be cool. There's a lot of things they still could be doing, but I think they are doing a lot more than they used to be doing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. There's it's very
Where
evident.
they were just cutting a check to Ohio Valley and that was basically it.
Yeah.
Like now it's we're in a good spot as wrestling fans, I think.
I think so, too. And when I say it's very evident that the audience needs a change, I think that it's being acknowledged. And maybe for the first time in a while, it's being acknowledged. Like, let's not take for granted the fact that, like, the last 2 Royal Rumble matches kind of left a lot of the audience going, like, this company doesn't have a clue.
Yeah.
Like, and it left the company scrambling to figure out how to put together a WrestleMania because everything got messed up. We're eating what they're feeding us now. You know what I mean? We're buying it.
We are. I think looking back like 20 years from now, I think we'll look back on the 2 Rumbles before this, or the 2 WrestleMania seasons before this as the what could have been Daniel Bryan era. Because the last 2 WrestleManias had him winning major titles and then the next night having to relinquish them because of injuries, or like maybe a week or 2 later.
Right.
And it's a shame, but that's sort of a little pocket where like, man, like,
and you do have to acknowledge that
unfulfilled,
Yeah, Daniel Bryan. I mean, that's the real tragedy of Daniel Bryan. As we speak now, Daniel Bryan's career, you have to look at it as
it's ultimately tragic.
Yeah, and all you can do is look at WrestleMania 30 as a moment in time, just a singular moment, a night. Put the DVD in, and you can't think about the before or after.
Yeah,
because that moment is perfect. It's as perfect as
and
any
I
moment
hope
in wrestling.
Can do that. I hope he isn't he isn't like burdened by what could have been
Right.
for the rest of his life. I hope he can like relish in like I was the guy at WrestleMania 30 standing on the turnbuckle with the confetti pouring down.
He still says if WWE doesn't let him wrestle, he's still going to wrestle.
Yeah.
So who knows what he'll do.
Dude, there's something in the water with the Bellas because you got Nikki injured.
Yeah.
You got Daniel Bryan injured. You got Cena
injured.
It's just Brie. Brie's the only one left. Brie mode.
She's holding on to the mantle for all of us. For all of us. Well, Andrew Goldstein, I appreciate you dropping some wisdom on us.
Can I ask one question before you wrap me up?
Yeah.
What's the main event at WrestleMania for you?
Roman Hunter.
I think it's Roman with Rock in his corner, Hunter with Vince in his corner.
I think that's very possible because I don't think The Rock's wrestling.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
so I think that would make perfect sense.
Plan A is Brock Rock. They can't do it because of Rock's insurance and Baywatch and et cetera, all those rumors.
And that'll be great because it'll be great to hear promos between The Rock and Vince McMahon again.
I think when that poster comes out, it's going to be Hunter and Roman with Vince and Rock also on the poster. The 4 biggest mainstream names that are healthy and still active on the roster on that poster in that match to get that mainstream ESPN, Entertainment Tonight. Because people know who Vince is, people know who The Rock is, certainly, and people are starting to know who Roman is, and most people know who Triple H is. So I think that confluence of those 4 guys in the main event can work. Yeah,
it's just a matter of doing due diligence over the next month and a half or so to get Roman to the right place. Because he can get to the right place. He was at the right place for a moment in time.
Yeah.
When he won the title, everybody went nuts.
Yeah, they had it. They finally got him back.
Yeah.
Now
they lost it again a little.
The problem is they have 18 hours of TV a week.
Yes.
So
yes.
you burn through 6 months of story in 2 weeks.
Right.
It's upsetting. It's like soap operas. But anyway.
Yeah, I think that'd be great. I would definitely add The Rock and Vince McMahon into those corners. Or even, it'll probably be Stephanie and Vince.
Because again, I think
in
Plan
Hunter's
A
corner.
again was supposed to be Hunter and Steph versus Ronda and The Rock, and The Rock, and then obviously Rock. Maybe that was Plan B with Rock and Brock being Plan A to sell out AT&T. So I think you're sort of down to that match,
which I think still works.
That's what I think happened.
And
then you go Bray Brock and
definitely Bray Brock.
Then the rest of the stuff. I like Taker Owens.
I think Taker
thought
Owens,
of that. I think that's a very good idea.
I think it'd be really, really good, and I think it would be Owens would probably lose, which I'm okay with. But I think it would be Owens' moment to
It's how you lose.
That's right. Andrew Goldstein, thank you so much.
Thank you
for being here. And where can people follow you on Twitter?
At Angegold, ANGEGOLD. If you tweet me about wrestling, I most likely will write you back. At Angegold and at Goldstein Andrew on Instagram. And Sam, dude, long time coming. I'm psyched that we got to do this.
Well, yeah, let's do it again.
Yeah.
You can always come back as a guest analyst. Analysis or analyzer.
Analyzer.
There it is.
That's my gimmick. I'm the analyzer.
And we will see you next week here on Sam Roberts Wrestling Podcast.
I know. Dude, that's fun.
Thanks for listening. Follow at NotSam on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And subscribe for free to listen every week to Sam Roberts Wrestling Podcast.